Hi lovely and darling viewers, it's Jen here at Check Her Joy. This time I'm doing a book haul video. Only this is comic books and graphic novels that I bought between May of 2018 and February of 2019, and excluding comics that fit into other haul videos that I'm filming around the same time. So I bought Doctor Who comics, but they are in the Doctor Who book haul, and I bought My Little Pony comics, but they are going to be in the children's book haul. But this is kind of the other stuff that sort of falls into this. Having said that, the very first one I have is The Sandman, The Dream Hunters, which is written by Neil Gaiman and has art by Yoshitaka Amano. I probably butchered that name. But this is not actually a comic. It is a novel based off the Sandman comics, and it's gonna go get shelved with my Sandman comics, so I'm gonna do it in this haul. I don't know, it's weird, it doesn't quite fit. So we've got text and then we have gorgeous watercolor illustrations. I don't know if you can see that properly with my weight balance going. So this book doesn't actually have a blurb so much as the reviews on the back, and the one that is most helpful is from Charles DeLint of the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction. So I'm going to read that as the book blurb because I haven't read it and I don't really know what's happening. So it begins with a wager between a badger and a fox, the prize being the monk's temple that the winner will use as a den. But the fox falls in love with the monk, and later, when she discovers that the lord of a nearby estate means a mill, she goes into the land of dreams and strikes a bargain with the Japanese counterpart of Morpheus to save the monk's life. How it all works out is for you to discover, but I will say that it is one of Gaiman's most exquisite and evocative stories to date. Equal praise must go to Yoshitaka Amano's artwork. It looks gorgeous, and I am super excited to get into this and to read it. It looks really interesting, and admittedly, I haven't read that much of the Sandman comics, but what I have read is, like, it's interesting and, like, mesmerizing in a way, and a little bit dark, which I love. So, ta-da! Sandman, The Dream Hunters. Also, an illustrated novel is Isaac Asimov's History of I-Robots, which is illustrated. This is actually a collection of, I guess, shorter graphic novels or comics that are combined that have different writers and artists. The first one is called History of I-Botics, which is written by Stephen Grant and is illustrated by Pablo Marcus. The second one is Prototype, which is written by John Gregory Betancourt and illustrated by Mark Jackson. Then we have the third one, which is Don't Go Near the Pantanal, which is written by Karen Haber and illustrated by Rags Morales. And the last one is The Journal of Zach Robenbillard, which doesn't have a writer-artist listed on the title page. Not all quite the same. So it'll be interesting to get into these and see what exactly is, what the stories are like. Because they're based off Asimov's work, but not like, straight stuff. So, interesting. Maybe. The rest of these are traditional graphic novels and comics that have, like, the comic book storylines, art styles. So, more Neil Gaiman. I have the Books of Magic, which actually has 4 artists on it. John Bolton, Scott Hampton, Charles Vess, and Paul Johnson. This is a collection of 4 comics, making up the entire run of the story about a young boy named Timothy Hunter. There's another one I haven't already read yet, so I actually don't know the plot, and I don't really want to sit here and read the introduction. Ta-da. I like Neil Gaiman. That was pretty much just out of eye. I'm excited. This will be more interesting. Different art styles by different artists, obviously. And then I also have Marvel 1602, which is also written by Neil Gaiman. It has art by Ann Kubert and Richard Asimov. So this one follows Marvel superheroes that we would know from today's comics, like X-Men, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Daredevil, but they all appear in the 17th century. So how they would fit into Elizabethan Shakespearean times. This one is 8 issues of a Marvel series collected. And I've read part of this. Like, I started reading this and then decided that I didn't know enough about the characters at the point that I was reading it, which was really early in my comic book reading days. So I kind of stopped because I'm like, I don't really know that much about the Fantastic Four, or Daredevil, or the X-Men. So I'm going to try to go back now that I have read a bunch of those comics and I'm familiar with them from the movies and stuff, and seeing if it's more enjoyable now. But I also really love Shakespeare and like Elizabethan England, so I feel like this is like the perfect mix for me. It's fun and interesting. More art. And I also have Swamp Thing Earth to Earth, which has Alan Moore, Rick Veitch, John Totleben, and Alfredo Alcalá. I think I'm getting worse at pronouncing these names. So I love old horror movies, like Universal horror stories. So the concept of a Swamp Thing comic sounds really fascinating. So this is issues 51 to 56 of the Swamp Man comic series from Vertigo / DC Comics, which I am excited to read. Hopefully it makes sense starting with issue 51. I also have V for Vendetta, also by Alan Moore, and David Lloyd with Stephen Whitaker and Siobhan Dodds. So I am going into V is for Vendetta without having read this comics before and not having seen the movie. I think it's a dystopian world where like a group of people try to take over who don Guy Fawkes masks. Maybe? I don't really want to know too much going into this, honestly. But it's one of those iconic graphic novels that like constantly comes up, so I'm gonna try to read it. My goal was to read it in November, but that did not happen, obviously. I got too wrapped up in my Halloween reads and not finishing them to try to read this for Guy Fawkes Day. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'm opening to random pages. Hopefully I didn't open to a spoilery page. Also, sorry guys. Alright, and then I have Suicide Squad, Volume 2, Basilisk Rising. I can't talk, sorry. With writing and art by Adam Glass and Fernando Dagnino. The Suicide Squad is a DC team of villains that become kind of anti-heroes, or the villains become heroes. So they have these villains that aren't necessarily the most evil, and so this government group tries to use the villains, the supervillains, to be like their secret ops team that can do things that like the heroes wouldn't, things that are morally ambiguous, and things where you might lose a person. Who cares if you lose one of the villains? I also really love Harley Quinn, who is one of the major members of the Suicide Squad. Art style. I also have 2 of the volumes of the Simpsons comics. I have Simpsons Hit the Road, and I have Jam Packed Jamboree. So these are collections of Simpsons comics. They're based off The Simpsons by Matt Groening, obviously. And I am really obsessed with Simpsons Tapped Out, the game on my phone right now. So I was like, definitely. Look, the Simpsons comics are fun and light anyway. They're generally one issue, one shot stories, so like you don't normally have to read all of them, which I also really love because you can just go into them and be like, Simpsons, yes please, and not have to have been reading the entire run. And they're usually pretty light, so I haven't read these ones. The one is based off of like camp stories and outdoor stories, and the other one is, I think they're road trip stories. They're classics. I love The Simpsons. I also randomly found an Ewok comic, so based off the Star Wars characters of the Ewoks, which are the teddy bear aliens from Return of the Jedi. I am obsessed with them. This sounds amazing. They also have like dinosaur type aliens. The Ewoks are so adorable. So I'm kind of interested to see what these look like. It's also an older comic. It's not in the best shape. I think this is from the 80s. This will be interesting. It also might not be the entire story. I'm not sure. I might end up getting stuck and not having the full story in here, but it just looked so cute and just like, I need it. Please. And then there are the comics that I got for Free Comic Book Day, which was in May. And so I ended up getting Marvel Rising issue 0. Honestly, I didn't actually end up reading this one. It's a setup to like an event happening. We've got the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. We've got Captain America. Captain Marvel's in it. Camellia Khan. Spider-Gwen. So a good like mix of female superheroes, which sounds intriguing. Like I said, I didn't actually read it yet, so I don't know. I also went later in the day out for Comic Book Day, so I was kind of stuck with what I could get. So, I also have the Amazing Spider-Man from Free Comic Book Day. This was actually really good and really surprised me because I'm not the hugest fan of Spider-Man. Maybe it's just I'm watching the movies, because the MCU, Tom Holland's Spider-Man is amazing, and this comic was also pretty awesome. This one has a older than I normally think of Peter Parker, who's like in his 20s and just settling at his job. So he's a young adult, trying to sort out his life and also deal with the fact that he is Spider-Man and a superhero. I read this back in May, so I honestly don't remember what the actual story arc is. But I remember that this one surprised me, and I also ended up thinking it was probably too adult to give to my 8-year-old nephew. I'm like, he's not going to care about being an adult and getting a job and a place to live and stuff. So I ended up not giving it to him, keeping it for myself. So we will see. So yeah, I did enjoy this one. Remember that, even if I can't remember the plot. Sorry, lighting. Chilling Adventures of Sabrina Season 2. This was actually part of the Halloween one, but the comic book store had it out on Free Comic Book Day also. I already read the first series of The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina and have reviewed them. They are so good and so creepy. I grew up watching the 90s Sabrina the Teenage Witch, but this one is so much darker and so much creepier and definitely horror. I haven't read season 2 yet because they only published a few of the story arc and then stopped in the middle of a story arc, which is probably my most aggravating thing. So I don't want to get invested in a story arc that isn't going to be finished or that I'm going to be waiting a while for it to be finished. So I haven't read it. But also I have The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Also, apparently this one is in black and white. So let me know if you picked this one up, if you guys have it, if I need it, if it's like a self-contained story or not, because now it's looking like the Munsters are in it, and that looks like we got the boy from the Munsters in it, and maybe it's a self-contained story. And the last one is this DC Nation, which has 3 different stories in it. Looks like we got Wonder Woman, Batman, and the Joker, and Superman. I also didn't read this one. I didn't do a good job of reading the books that I got for Free Comic Book Day this year. But I love all these characters. I especially love Superman. He's my favorite. Also, Cleveland. Superman was created in Cleveland, in case you guys didn't know that. Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster were both Clevelanders, and that's where they created him. So he's my hometown hero. The third story, I was wrong. It is apparently not Wonder Woman. It's actually Justice League, because we couldn't just put Wonder Woman in here by herself. Obviously, she has to be part of a team. I would totally want to read just a Wonder Woman comic, guys. Come on, fix that for next year, DC. So those are the comics, graphic novels, and illustrated novels that I got within the last few months. Let me know in the comments below if you have read any of these and if you liked them or didn't like them. As I review them, I will post the links to those reviews down in the description below. Like, I will link to them. But as of filming, I haven't read any of these actual comics, at least not enough that I remember them. Spider-Man. So, yeah. This was a bit of a interesting book haul since I didn't remember what was in the stack, and also I didn't apparently read any of these. I have a very big TBR right now. So, okay, peace out. I love you guys and keep reading. Bye.